The MBA program, and we're going to talk tonight about PBL, which stands for Project Based Learning. And you are likely here because you are going to start a new course that will likely employ PBL. And so we'll talk about what that is and how to prepare, what you can expect, and why we do what we do. I'm excited about it, but I know that the reason we have these meetings is to kind of ease your mind and understand that it is different, but there's a reason that it is different. So our agenda tonight will be explain what project-based learning is, explain the difference in the organization of this course compared to probably a typical one that you've had in the past, whether it would be undergrad or some very early MBA courses that you had. We'll kind of describe what projects are. So when we talk about project-based learning, what is a project? And we're going to explain that. We'll explain the dynamics about working in a team. And I'll answer questions not only at the end, but I'll stop a few times along the way. I cannot see the chats, so I'm going to rely on Alan. If we have a chat in there or a hand raised, I'm not able to see that, but I will stop from time to time and answer questions. But I'm really happy that you're here, and it says a lot to Alan and I that you've taken the time out of your evening. And it means a lot to us that you prepare for this. And so the reason we went to project-based learning for our MBA courses is that we've heard loud and clear from the employers that we work with that this was a skill that they were looking for. And when we talk to our folks that we work with in different organizations, and we talk to a lot of CEOs and discuss with them what they're looking for with somebody with the abbreviation MBA next to their name. What are the skills that you expect? And what we've heard loud and clear is critical thinking skills. What is that exactly, and how do we help you develop those skills? Innovation, and how to be creative in what you do. And thirdly, and this is the one that scares students, because working in teams not easy, and working in virtual teams can be even more challenging when you don't know the folks. You may be in different time zones, you may be across the country, or you could be across the world. We've had students in other countries as well. And so working through those differences, understand how important diversity is, and understand that you may have different backgrounds and life experiences and so on. And to me, that's what makes a really dynamic team. And so as we think about project-based learning and how it's different from other courses that you had, really look at a couple different things. Number one is the course is not just a bunch of chapters that you're reading and taking a test on, or maybe doing a little case on. And in those typical courses, it's kind of like disjointed. Yeah, you have chapter 1, 2, and 3. Now we move to 4, 5, and 6, but they're not necessarily interconnected. With a project-based learning course, we're looking at one project that you're doing throughout the course, and you're connecting the material in the course to that particular project. Put another way is that you're going to have one thing you're primarily focused on, and you're going to have little drafts as you're going through the course, and they tend to be higher weighted as you move on. So the early drafts might only be worth 5%. As you get to the very final project, that's worth 40% of your grade. So we put more emphasis on the final deliverable, just like you were in an organization. We would like you to put your hat on that when you take these courses, you're not a student at the MBA level, but you're a consultant, meaning that we want you to think that you're helping the organization, and your role is to help them fix an issue. And so that issue may be a lot of different things depending on the course. It could be a marketing issue. It could be a people issue with their employees. It could be a retention issue. It could be a profitability issue. and so on. And so we take these cases and we kind of focus them on the particular course that you're in. So, for example, if you're going into the 515 course, which I bet some of you might be, or perhaps the marketing course 524. Those are typical courses for folks that are on this call, but you might be in a different one, or maybe this is your second project-based learning course. But if you're in the marketing course, we're going to be focused on some sort of marketing issue. And if you're in the org behavior course, we're going to be looking at some sort of culture, team issue, retention, those things that rely on those concepts around employees. You could kind of think of it as sort of a human resource, issue that you might be focused on. And so you're going to be doing various activities in the course, but they may not be in order. And what I mean by that is, in a typical course, you'll have units. You do unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way through the 8 weeks. And so you know exactly what you're doing. But the real world doesn't work that way. When you look at a problem in your current job, you don't necessarily have a clear sequence of what we're going to focus on. You're going to look at, hey, this seems like the most serious issue. Let's focus on this right now. And then let's look at this and this and this. And so what we do, instead of having units, we have resources available to you. And so you're going to see how your course is set up, and you're going to see resources available, and there'll be different topics that you can look at. And we don't tell you necessarily which topic to go first, but we do tell you that you have to have certain things done by certain times of the course, certain weeks, certain drafts, and so on. And we have different resources available to you. And so in a project-based learning class, you're going to see a few things that are different. One, as I said, you're going to see something that says resources available. You will also see something that says deliverables. That's the area where you know what needs to be done by what time period. And so as you're looking at that, you're going to see, okay, I got to get this done, this done, and this done. Most of the course would be focused with your team. There might be some individual projects, but a lot of our courses are anywhere between 40% of the team up to 85% team, because you're primarily working on a team project. But there may be some individual aspects to this, such as reflection, a journal, talking about how's your team going, what you could do differently, what you've learned about it, or even could be a journal on the subject matter and how you're looking at the subject matter differently. And a journal is something that you do just to the instructor, and you kind of reflect on your thoughts. And so you're going to see those in some courses as well. But primarily, you're going to be working in group activities. And so you'll see a group discussion board where most of the activities between a team will occur. However, most teams use other channels for communication. And that could be anything from Zoom to Teams to so on. And usually the folks will agree what is the best communication channel for the folks on their team. And so we still use the Blackboard group discussion area for general discussion, but usually the teams will use apps and other methods to communicate with each other. The key to this is communicating. And so most of the teams will have somewhere around a handful of folks, depending on the size. If we have a class with 20 students in it, we're likely to have 4 teams of 5 on a team. And we try to go with teams with 4 or 5. Obviously, if we have a small class, I think Al and I have had a couple classes where we only have 3 students in it, so we had to have one team. But that's very unusual. Most of our classes, especially 515 and 524, those classes generally are much more than that, usually over a 20. So there'll be plenty of teams and plenty of folks on the team. And so in those teams, you'll be discussing how you're going to work on the problem. And the problem will come through a case. And the case could be one that the professor gives you, or it could be a real life organization. And we're doing more and more where we hook up with an organization, and we have plenty of those where we bring in an entrepreneur, a small company, and they want help with something. And students really learn a lot because they have to think as a consultant. And so the entrepreneur or the leader of this organization will discuss, some of the challenges they're facing, and we'll work with the different teams to come up with some solutions. And so as you go through this, what's exciting about it is you really are making a difference, and you really are doing something that is significant. And you're not just reading a book and taking a test. You are actually applying what you've learned, which is a much higher level. So bottom line with this project-based learning, there are no number of units. You won't go in there and find out, hey, we're in unit 1, week 1, 2. You're going to see that, yes, there are some weeks where things have to get done, and maybe your first draft is due in week 3 and 5 and so on, but you will not see typical discussion boards like you've seen in other courses every week. We don't have those. We don't have just questions out there that everybody's asking. We've moved beyond that. And so this is real life scenarios, and you're working together to help with the problem. There's likely no one right answer. You're not going to go read the textbook and say, oh, let's go to page 135, and that's exactly what we should do. The world doesn't work that way. However, when you're looking at different materials and resources, and you're going to go and look for your own, you're going to see things that apply to the problem and ideas that you have, and some goals and objectives that you can develop based on what you've learned about the topic. And so you're going to see a timeline of things that you have to get it done throughout the class. You're going to see the deliverables, I said, and you're going to work in the group area, which is our group discussion board, and you're going to be primarily working with your group. Very early on in the class, the first week, you're going to see a discussion board that might look like your other courses, but it's an introduction. Take that seriously. There's a question. We were trying to get to know you. And so we ask you questions about yourself, how you want to work in teams, how do you handle due dates, what do you want to be known for, those kind of things. Don't blow that off. That is very serious, because the instructors picks teams based on how they answer those questions, meaning that we try to look at people with the same work ethic together. Those people that are real high energy, type A, intense individuals are generally one group. Then those people are kind of in the middle. They're not freaking out, but they're focused. And then you have the ones that are more laid back. And we try to put that, those folks together. We find that there's more camaraderie that way, and there's less conflict when folks are put together in those teams. So take that introduction seriously when you get into the class that very first week. And so, as I mentioned, the PBLs give you a chance to really be creative, innovative, collaborative with others. We feel it gives you an opportunity to network with people. You're not just sitting alone in your computer. You are able to really understand how the ideas you have connect with the ideas of other folks, and then you learn how to compromise, or you learn how to be open-minded, communicate, deal with conflict effectively. So your role in this is to be engaged. And we do peer reviews in most of the courses. So students that are not engaged are not likely to do well in the course. So if you think somebody's going to do all your work for you, it will come back and affect your grade significantly. And depending on the course, it could be where you don't pass because you got a bad peer review. Now, obviously, you want to make sure you're communicating with people that are not meeting deadlines, that are not, that are not being effective. We want the students to be able to help each other. and learn to bring people in and motivate them. I know, there, whatever reason, a student may never respond to you. You can't force people, but when you have 4 and 5 on a team, we still find there's plenty enough people to get things done, and it could affect their score significantly. I mean, we want you to be able to deal with conflict. Just because somebody doesn't agree with you is not a reason to give them a poor review. But if they treat you with disrespect, they don't respond to your questions, they don't take it seriously, they don't come in with creative ideas, and so on, that's really what we're talking about. So you're going to be able to make some important decisions about the project, and you'll have an opportunity to learn about this whole process and how you've grown, or what you've faced, or what you would do differently about it. I'm going to stop for a second and open to questions, and I'm not able to see hands raising, Alan, so let me know if anyone has a question. Alan, is there questions?
Yeah, no, nothing so far. Chat is empty. Everyone's quiet.
Any thoughts out there from anyone? Anything you'd like to ask so far? If not, I will continue on. Well, having done this for a while, I can tell you the first thing I think you're thinking about is, boy, this is going to be a pain. I'm going to have to work with people that aren't as serious as I am. I'm going to have to work with people that may be on different time periods, and I have to balance my own schedule now. I have to balance other people's. But isn't that really what organizations do too? And so it really is an important skill. And we find most students, once they get used to this, they really appreciate. And I know Alan can speak to this. I mean, we've had students that have grown a lot through this experience, and also be able to take these ideas and take them to their own company, or be able to even put it on your resume that you helped an actual organization. As I said, not every class is a real life scenario, but every class is at least a case that was taken from a real life organization. But we're moving more and more to real life cases, and know I have a few going this time as well in some of the courses. So this really is about an opportunity for you to really utilize what you've learned, not just to be sitting there and taking notes and taking tests. That's not what organizations are looking for MBA students. And we like you to take different roles. Some of you might automatically be focused on being a leader because that's what you do in real life. You're like, you know what, I want to get this done, and it's going to take me to lead it, and I love leading, and so on. We appreciate that, but we think you learn more from not always being a leader, but sometimes it's important to maybe take a different role this time. And we like folks to, throughout this program, to take different roles in different classes, and even on different aspects of the project. Sometimes you can take different roles. This also gives you an opportunity to network that you wouldn't have on online learning otherwise. And this, learning other students, and being able to meet people not only in your area, but throughout the country that may have similar interests, or maybe in a career that you're interested in, that you can that you can network with, and build some contacts and so on. This whole thing of emotional intelligence, and if you haven't had the opportunity in a leadership course, you're going to learn about it in our program. But EQ, it's a little different IQ. IQ is about how smart you are, but EQ is your ability to get along with other folks. And maybe these people are very different than you. Just think about your own organization, and those conflicts that you have, your ability to work with people that have different backgrounds. One of the biggest challenges that I see out there today in many organizations would be generational differences. And what I love about our MBA is we have folks from all different age groups, all different ethnicities, all different parts of the country. We have military, we have students in Germany, we've had students in China, we have students from all over, and I think that really gives you an opportunity to use your emotional intelligence skills to be able to really to people that are different than you. But the generational difference when it's a challenge today in a lot of organizations. And so we do have students in their 20s, and we have students all the way up to their 80s, in this program. Everybody's doing doing their schoolwork and getting the MBA for different reasons. A lot of you are probably looking at career advancement. Some of you are looking for uh, be an example to your children, or maybe it's a bucket list item, or could be even an example to your grandchildren, or something you just always wanted to do. Or maybe some of you want to change your career, and that you feel the education will be the opportunity to do that. And that was certainly the case for me. And I'm just so fortunate, and I think about every day how important my education was to me, even though it was very difficult. And all of you are adult learners, and so even if you are a more traditional age student, you do have other responsibilities, whether that might be sports or a job or family or whatever the case is. And one of the skills that employers are looking for, and I just had a friend that just started a new job, and they said to her that the top skill that they were looking for, this is somebody with an MBA, top skill was diversity, equity, and inclusion, and being an example of that, being able to work with people that might be in different backgrounds and bringing people together for a common purpose. And we need leaders to do that today, and we need leaders to make people feel valued and to give them opportunities and treat them as a member of the team. And I think that this is so important that you're going to do this in these teams as well. Being able to negotiate, deal with conflict, be able to still treat people with respect, even though they may have a different approach than you do, and reach a decision, come up with a conclusion, and turn in something that you're all proud of. And so we know it doesn't come easy. When you only have to control yourself. Good friend of mine once said, "You know what? I would love being a leader if I didn't have to have a team." Well, you're not a leader if you don't have a team, right? Working with different people is not easy. If all you had to worry about is controlling yourself, that's a heck of a lot easier when you have a group of 20 or 40 or 60 or hundreds of employees that you're responsible for. On these projects, you're going to be working with a handful or so people, and you're going to have to deal through that pain and accomplish something you're proud of. And that pain, it's different. Some courses, things are going to go pretty smoothly, and other ones you're going to have somebody that might be quite different than yourself, and you think, boy, I hope I don't have to work with them again. But just the fact that you did and you accomplished something is a learning experience, because in your company, in your career, you might even work for somebody like that might have a very different approach. And so, as I told you, we've taken feedback from advisory boards that we have with different organizations. We've talked to many hiring managers throughout the United States, and these are the skills that they're looking for: collaboration, communication, problem solving, team building, and networking. And so that's what we're really trying to focus on these projects. And so, as I mentioned, I really want you to think about taking different roles. Don't just take a role that you're comfortable with. For example, well, I work in human resources, so I just want that piece of the issue. Oh, I work in marketing, so I just want the marketing issue. That's not growth. And sometimes you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to look at the finance stuff this time. I'm going to look at the numbers because I don't necessarily feel comfortable with that. And I really want to learn. I really want to be versatile and have a lot of different skills. A few terms ago, I had a student who was a human resource student say to me, they sent me an email and said, I think it's crazy that you require finance concepts in an MBA because I work in human resources and we don't need to know anything about finance. Now, I hope everybody in this call can see that that is absolutely not true. No matter what position that you have in an organization, especially as you want to advance, you're going to have a budget. You're going to have to deal with the overall financial situation of the organization. whether things are going well, not so well, understanding how inflation and other economic factors will impact the organization. And so having an understanding of those concepts, and maybe you're not an expert on what a quick ratio is and know all your ratios, but doggone it, you at least know where to find them. You at least know enough that somebody can't mislead you, or you just know this doesn't sound right, doesn't feel right. And that doesn't matter what position you're in. And going back to this emotional intelligence, when it's all said and done, in my career, I've done a lot of consulting. I've been in senior leadership positions. I've often felt that the reason that I've had any success or any promotions been my ability to have emotional intelligence, not how smart I am. If I had to rely on how smart I was, I probably wouldn't have been that successful in my own mind. But the ability to get along with people, all different people from all different backgrounds, I don't know, made me appreciate life a whole lot more, and having empathy for people that may have had a different experience than I did, understanding the things that they experienced in their life, I think made me appreciate people a lot more. Understand how to motivate people. We're not all motivated the same way, and thinking about your own team and think about what really motivates folks. And for those of you that are in the military or worked in organization leadership, you know that everybody kind of has what makes us tick varies, and really getting to know what really inspires people. We have to know ourselves too, being self-aware, and how important it is to know how we're coming across, whether we seem frustrated, angry, the tone of our voice. You probably know 70% of communication is nonverbal. When you're working online, you don't always know what that body language looks like. And sometimes you get an email and you stare at it for 10 or 15 minutes thinking, I wonder what she means, Sarah. I wonder what he means. I don't really know. I don't really get it, And so sometimes you got to sit back and analyze a little bit before you respond and think, wow, I'm not going to take it that way. I'm not happy. I'm responding right away. Sometimes I have to take a walk and think, maybe there's a different perspective. Maybe I need to understand what might be going on with this person, and being able to regulate myself and say, you know what, I'm going to put my emotions in check. Maybe I need to take my dog for a walk. Maybe I just need to take a deep breath before, I ignite or say something I regret. And I think that's really about the social skills. And we talked about DE and I also talk about the whole belonging piece. Some folks and some organizations, they're really proud of how diverse the organization is. But a wise person once said to me, you could have a very diverse organization at absolutely no effort on your part. You just were lucky, meaning that you just happen to be diverse, but you're never inclusive by luck. You're inclusive by action, and you're making people feel like they belong. They're here. They're here because they're important, and you care what they think about, and making everyone on your team feel that way. You may have heard the concept of imposter. Sometimes we have students and we have people work in companies that feel like, I don't really belong here. I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think that I have the experience that other people. I don't think I'm as valuable. And making people feel like, you know what, some of the most creative ideas that I've ever heard come from people that don't necessarily have experience in that field. Sometimes we'll have healthcare problems, and I'll have students send me an email. I don't want a healthcare problem because I don't work in healthcare. And I say, but the concepts are the same. You're still looking at innovation. You're still looking at how to inspire others. You're still looking at problem solving, whether it's in healthcare or whether it's in marketing or retail or supply chain, whatever the case is, the concepts are the same. And so we find some of the most creative ideas come from people that come from maybe have a different background or different career. And so this idea of really truly active listening, the asking the why, being open-minded for folks that have different backgrounds, being able to really think about a win-win and negotiating and not thinking I have the better idea. I'm going to push everybody to my idea. And we all know that we see people like that in organizations. We also know that when there's a conflict with a team, whether it's here in your coursework or whether it's in your company, it doesn't affect just the two people that have the conflict, but it affects the entire team. And so thinking about that and how you handle it, what kind of example you are to others, and knowing when you need to take a moment before you send off that email or say something that you regret to somebody on your team. And there's no guarantee of that you're going to have this super team, but there is a guarantee that those things that we talked about throughout tonight, that you're going to have opportunity to do those things, the critical thinking, the bringing people in, making people feel like they belong, being innovative and creative. Those things are really important. So the bottom line to all this is that you're going to have one problem or a few problems from an organization. You're going to have a case that you're going to be working on. You're going to have drafts on that case. You're going to have a final project that'll be weighted more heavily towards the end, and you will turn that at the end. There'll probably be some opportunities for reflection. There likely will be a presentation, so it won't just be writing that you're going to present, whether it's to the professor or to the actual organization if you have a real case scenario. I find that most students, when they start, it'll feel a little uncomfortable because you have been doing a certain way, as you're going through your coursework and now you're into this, and there might be a little adjustment or a big adjustment, but we find that students, once they're adjusted, they appreciate this opportunity because it's not just being a wallflower. It's not just sitting back and just doing your own thing. It's truly being able to meet people, getting really creative ideas that you would never have thought of alone, or this idea of this synergy of that you get from other people, not just sitting by yourself. And really, you might have a couple ideas, and when they're woven into others, it really becomes something special. And I think that that's the piece that we want people to walk away with. I'm going to stop and see what kind of questions you have. And Alan, do you have anything you want to add as they're thinking about questions?
To be honest with you, I think you were pretty comprehensive. These are very different ways to take classes. It's definitely something, especially if you've been with Post for a while, that is going to feel a little weird and take some time to get used to. And yeah, because it's different, because it's new, and because you're doing a lot more direct interaction with your peers, there is a lot more opportunity to wind up in situations that you've never wound up in before. But I encourage you to embrace the opportunity. I do encourage you to, to communicate both with your advisor, with your professor, let them know how things are going, but also, take that opportunity to be proactive, to be a leader, to resolve situations. That's if this is an opportunity for you to figure out how to step up. I think that's something that is difficult in the other format. In all honesty, I think the traditional way we go to school, answer some discussion board questions and write me a paper, that's a lot of theory and not a lot of practice. And this is the kind of class that can give you some practice, especially if it's not something that you've had to do before. I think that there's a lot to learn here that feels like a bug, but is really a feature.
Yeah, I've had students send me emails and say, I don't like this person on my team. I said, okay. What does that mean? There's going to be people that are going to sit next to you in your office cubicle that you would never go to lunch with, never want to hang out with, but you're still going to have to accomplish something with. And I could say some of the things, we've had some teams that I don't think were buddy-buddy, but they were really quite effective. And you're still able to work with people. And one of the things we find with research, and I think is really been true in our project-based learning classes, the more diverse our teams are, they can have more conflict, but they tend to do a better job. You might have these conflicts, but when it's all said and done, this diversity of ideas and thoughts really brings together something that is innovative. And that's what organizations are looking for. And you're going to find that from our companies that we work with. And most of the companies we've worked with have been very complimentary on the things that we have accomplished. And when I say we, I mean the students.
Yeah, and
Questions for us?
I will also just mention while it's on my mind. Now there is of course a line. Obviously we want you guys to work this out among yourselves. We want to make sure that conflicts are being, addressed head on. They're just like in a real workplace. There is a line. If you feel like there's something that you need to talk to me about, you need to talk to Emily about, or you need to talk with your professor about, or with Dr. Lochran about, please do that. I have had students come forward and say that there were things that they didn't feel like they wanted to work it out themselves. And, again, there is a line, use your best judgment, talk to us if you really feel like you need to. But that is not the norm. That's the exception. And yeah, please embrace the opportunity.
And we certainly would never expect anybody to be abused and feel that they're not valued. We don't have that very often. I can think of all the classes we've run. It's been so few and far between because most people want to grow. They're in this program and they truly are open to it. But occasionally we have people that make mistakes and we need to deal with those mistakes.
Right.
Questions for us?
Yeah, the chat so far is empty, but any questions for myself or Dr. Lochran on the program, on the classes, on anything you've experienced, if you've been in any of these before? We're here to talk about any or all of that.
Hi, yes, I just have, I can share a little bit of an experience. I was a little surprised to be invited to this class because I believe I've done some team building and project work already through Post, but always looking to learn new things. But I did find one class I was part of. I found that if we had role clarity within the team, some people have more strengths and weaknesses than others. Some people like to be the role presenter. Some people like to be the leader. Organizational, somebody might be strong with organization, so they'll take team notes. I found that if we sort of provided roles to each person, realizing that if we need to get together virtually, there's different time zones and stuff, that knowing what your role is within the team and what you need to have done, you can do outside of the initial participation does help. So role clarity amongst the team I found was very, very helpful with my experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And I think that when you feel that you have, a clear purpose, it makes you focused. I do like when folks, the next time they're in a project, maybe take a different role. That would make them maybe feel uncomfortable. I always say, if you're not feeling a little uncomfortable, you're probably not growing as much as you can. So I really like that comment because I think it's really important that you know what your purpose is.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. That is definitely something that that can be important to understand. If you are you going to be, are you going to be in charge this term or not? And if you're not going to be in charge, what are you doing? And if you find that other people aren't giving you that clarity in that direction, be the one to step up and ask and say to the group, let's lay this all out.
We've had students contact the professor and say, we want you to come run our team. And that's not what we want the professors to do. We certainly want to be able to be engaged with the teams and kind of help them with the focus, but not to lead the teams. We want the students to think of themselves as consultants, and we want the instructor to think of themselves as a leader of the consultants.
Other questions, other comments? Anything that's on anyone's mind?
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate that you're taking your time off this evening. And even though you may have been in a class before, I hope it gave you some things to think about. And as you get into these courses further, it's going to even be more team. And as we continue to develop the program, we're even moving more in that direction. So I just truly appreciate it. It says a lot about you guys for taking your time. You know, most of you are probably in a course right now, and you're taking the time to think about your next one. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. And if you do have other questions, again, things that occur after this call, don't hesitate. Again, follow up with me, with Emily, with anybody on the advising team. We're more than happy to loop in Dr. Lockwood and make sure you get answers to your questions should anything come up.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care, all.